Lilith, come and hear my call. We have come.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today, joining me is a serial crab art. Some of you may be aware that we have joined efforts before on Rituals for Hire. As a matter of fact, we started with the Rite of Samhain, and then we concluded that with another ritual, which was known as the Rite of the Nine Demonic Gatekeepers. Both of us sat down, and we were both kind of doing our own thing, and we kept going over the countless emails, countless reviews, and amazing feedback that we were getting from our clients of the transformative effects that these rituals had in their life. And normally we would have to advertise for the next ritual, but it doesn't seem as so, because everybody is now asking, when is the next tag team ritual? When's the next group rite? And this is the next group rite. This will be the Rite of the Black and Bloody Waters, involving Lilith, the three sisters. And so, joining me today is the serial crab art. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing super awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for jumping on with me, doing another podcast. And hello to everyone that has been missing us two sitting right next to each other in the virtual world of this Skype call that we're now going to produce within a magical manner, trying to introduce you to Lilith, the three sisters, and what this rite will entail. Now, as Connor just said, we had a lot of feedback from all of you, from both our fan bases, from a lot of people coming from different kind of groups, and they're all scattered around the left-hand path, and even some outside of that. And we had so many good feedbacks, regarding our Samhain ritual, and the last one that we kind of ended the last year with and started the new year with the Nine Demonic Gatekeepers. And people were already asking when Connor and I were going to jump into the circle again to produce some awesome results in Magick for us and for the community. And this is why we're here today, to introduce to you the Rite of the Black and Bloody Waters. And I think that you, having a little bit more experience with Lilith and the Three Sisters, would be the best candidate to kind of introduce people to the whole concept of what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, most definitely. I couldn't agree more. So whenever we discuss Lilith, I mean, the very first thing that people are going to think is the first woman, the first wife of Adam, demonized and becomes a baby-eating succubus. And that is just not true. That is so not true. See, the case is, and the case often is, that with most of the ancient gods and goddesses, that these systems of religion, monotheism, they take these ancient cultures and they demonize them. They take gods and goddesses and create them into devils. Now, that being said, there is something interesting within the myth that does demonize them, that sort of leaves breadcrumbs for us to follow. So, for example, yes, Lilith can be seen as the first woman, as she is the embodiment of femininity. Dare I go to say, she's the very embodiment of feminism. And I mean real feminism, not people getting offended and people start crying over small things. No, this is real. This is real strength, independence. She is the incarnation of the infernal feminine forces. She is essentially the dark goddess. And Lilith, throughout time, has had all different faces, all different names, and different incarnations. Now, along with this, you do have a sisterhood, an actual sisterhood. And the views on this do interchange depending on your source. Some people believe that Lilith and the sisters are actually just different faces of Lilith. So who are the sisters? You have Nama. You have Nama is the initiatrix into the Clifforfic mysteries. As a matter of fact, the soul, when they go traveling through the Blackwood tree, the very first Cleaver that they will enter is, and the first Cleaver is known by many names, so I'm just going to give a few here: Lilith, Nama, and Ahima. And excuse me if I do butcher these pronunciations here. But when the soul enters into this Cleaver, they are going to encounter Nama. She often is depicted as a feminine being wearing a robed, red hooded cloak, and she's a seductress as well as the initiatrix into the Clifforfic mysteries. As we go further along, however, we do encounter other sisters, such as Agrat Batmalat, the roof dancer, she who dances in between the worlds of the sleeping and the worlds of awake, the dream world of the dreamscape and the physical world, and in between the borders of quite frankly, the spiritual and the physical. And that's sort of what the dreamscape is. And then, of course, we have Aishtep Zenonim. And I've encountered Aishtep Zenonim in various forms as the harlot and as well as the sister of poison, the queen of poison. There have been some amazing authors that I will touch on here. If you guys are generally interested in reading up on the sisters in general, look out for works of Asenath Mason and Bill Duvindak and the Temple of Ascending Flame. But what we're here for is to offer something quite unique, and that is a ritual which is we're literally going to summon forth the participants in this ritual, and we're going to immerse them in the black and bloody waters. In the twilight realm, in the night side itself, there is a hidden sphere, there is a hidden place between the worlds. And right here is an actual vortex, if you will, an actual vortex, if you will, that has above it, the astral landscape looks like literally like something out of a movie. It's insane. And you have all these different cycles of the moon in the astral plane above you. And specifically, right above these waters is the blood moon. And for those of you that may know about the horn god and the bloody goddess, you'll understand the importance of the blood moon and how that is also a part of what many people will call the elixir or the chalice of fornication, or blasphemy or whatever. And yeah, so we're here to literally immerse people into this vortex. This is the collective essence of all four sisters, and the benefits of such a transformative immersion are vast. They really are.
Oh, they're even beyond vast. And I think it's interesting that you and I certainly always pick rituals and rites that are about not all the time rebirth, but more like like the first rite we've done on my side, for example. I've done a refunneling of your magic, where we were using dark forces of the Celtic spirits and ancient gods and goddesses to refunnel and like rekindle that magic flame. And on the nine demonic gatekeeper ritual, we literally called on all the nine gatekeepers to open up the gates for you in your life to be empowered. And now we're moving to a next step, which is maybe sort of important and should have been done by us as the first step. But while working with Lilith and the pool of black and dark waters, this is not only a rebirth that's going to happen within your literal soul and consciousness and your consciousness matrix. This is going to rip apart everything that's kind of holding you back and all the barriers that you placed either in front of yourself or that were placed in your life, rip them from you and use them as a benefit for you. Yeah, you always have a good term for that by turning something, I don't know how you worded it last time, but you're using something that is normally oppressing you and turning that around as a benefit for you, using that power. And you're not only becoming empowered by this dark force of the dark goddess entirely, you are essentially being reborn within these blackened waters by Lilith, Nama, and the three sisters, as you are now embracing the dark feminine aspect of yourself and being reborn through these waters. And I must tell you that while we were preparing for this rite, I did the preparatory immersions by going to this place and making sure that I understood where we were going to go and what needed to be done beforehand. And after we jumped off the last live stream where we previously talked about this and briefly kind of touched upon it, I went back there and visited Lilith and just asked her, what else this ritual might bring for, all the participants. And what she told me is that you do not have any barriers within your mind that are not self-created. You must see that for yourself, the road is always open. But the little stones that you focus on might hinder you to move forward from what you truly sought out to be. Because, right in front of you, you might have a goal that you're trying to achieve one day, no matter what the time scale is. But sometimes we become distracted because we're being pulled back by life. And what this ritual does is that Lilith and the sisters will literally take you, throw you into the pool. You're being drowned by them. You're being ripped apart, and every little essence that you had will be placed back together, almost within a black, bloody mold, gluing you back to something that you always were, but something completely new. And then Lilith, and the sisters come to pull you out of the waters and embrace you as one of their children, their brothers, and their fathers. There's a whole family lineage when it comes to that. It's really a paradox, but you are becoming one with the essence of the dark goddess. And you yourself introduced me to Nama and the secret dwelling of this dark embodiment of pure female energy and power. So I want to kind of touch upon how you, first were introduced to, this whole ritual and how you got to know it and why you think this might also be really something for everyone out there, even though they might be female or male.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So it was during a very interesting time of my life before I came public, before I was doing this publicly. I was in one of the forums, and I have a very good friend there, and we still touch base every now and then. And his name was Uriel, and I was discussing with him the fact that I was working with Lucifer, Lilith, Samael, and these sort of entities. And he says to me, "Oh, talking about Lilith, I came across something very interesting." And he describes this place to me and describes his encounters, and we all had different encounters, sure. And then afterwards, he goes, "Look, here's the way you can get there." And that was all that was ever spoken about it. And I noticed with various initiations and gate openings such as this, that the advice is very, very, how can I put it, subtle. It's only giving you a direction, but they're not going to guide you. And that's what he did, man. He gave me a direction. That's kind of where you go and see where you go with it. And so I followed it. I followed it as in depth where I can, and I took it even a step further. And I got to understand Lilith and the sisters much more intimately. And essentially, like when you said about, that they're literally going to drag you and drown you in these waters. Now, the interesting thing here is you may have people watching this thinking, well, why the hell would I want that? Why would I want to be dragged, ripped apart, and drowned? Let me explain something. Now, you have within this existence, you have masculine energies and you have feminine energies, also known as the Great Goddess and the Horn God, And essentially, the Dark Mother, which has had multiple faces, even here in my Tone the Necromancer that I released who become a living god, in there is Jahi. And Jahi is that Dark Mother. And me and EA touched on this, that the Dark Mother is an aggressive maternal force that will do things through aggressive and destructive means, but for one's own betterment. You understand? So when they're ripping you apart, they're essentially destroying aspects of yourself, not only that you have to let go, but aspects of yourself which, quite frankly, are literally poisoning you, that are literally against you, that are literally aspects of your own self that you may be unfamiliar with, that are quite frankly just stumbling blocks and hurdles and obstacles. Because when everybody talks about, I got a ritual done, it was a gate opening, it was a road opening, it was so on and so forth. That's great and all, but the half of those blockages that you're trying to destroy are emanating from within and out. As within, so without, as above, so below. All things are essentially connected. And it is our perception and our self, which does also affect the world around us. So not only is the internal blockages going to be destroyed, your external blockages are also going to be destroyed. Understand? And there's an interesting concept where you said that I like the fact that you said about pulling them down and drowning you, because there are aspects of the sisters which are very siren in nature, and the mythology of the sirens are quite interesting. They were tense sailors with beautiful songs and lustrous, seductive features, and they would drown them to the very depths. And that's what we're doing here. But like you said, as we're being pulled to the depths, we are then being reformed, rebuilt, and renewed. And so many people have asked me, why do your rituals that you often give always have the aspect of death and rebirth? Why? And I'm like, do you understand how important this is? They're like, yeah, I get it, but why so many times? I said, well, that's like saying, why does the snake shed its skin so many times in its life cycle? It is needed. It is a needed process. We don't do a death and a rebirth, get up and then go about our lives. We're constantly dying and constantly being reborn. We're constantly putting it all back on the altar. And this is another form of that, another essence of that, and being rebuilt yet again by something, I wouldn't say necessarily greater than the self, because, being a black magician, I don't say anything is greater than the self, but another layer of your deepest potential, essentially, because we are incarnations of limitless potential. It is merely using the external stimuli or stimulus that is going to awaken that. And these are the type of rituals that do exactly that.
Yes, exactly. And this is one of the rites that are constantly being done on left-hand path, workings within our current, where I remember many years ago, many, many years ago, when I started on the left-hand path, that every ritual that I have done for myself was most of the time a sort of a rebirth and a death ritual to further thrust myself into my own being, understanding what I am, and constantly becoming the true potential of what I know that is, outside and within me. Because we are limited as a human being, because we only have I don't even know, 0.0001% of, the entirety of existence. But existence and everything in the universe is also within us, and we can unlock these things. And by going through these rituals and thrusting ourselves, into the dark water, for example, and being pulled down, by the sirens and being ripped apart, it's not about, oh, we want to face death because we like the feeling of it. That might be a key part to it for sure, but it's more like that we constantly seek out to better ourselves. And I think the best way to, kind of get a head start on what you want to do in life and to, take the poisons that are hindering you to achieve the full, potential that you have and the greatest part of yourself, is to take that poison and to turn it into medicine by, thrusting yourself into death and realizing what needs to be done, what needs to be cast away from you by the Lilith and the sisters taking that from you and essentially gluing you back together as a new being. And that will resolve in your reality after these rituals. And that's why I think this is very important for me, for everyone out there in the community, that we start facing, the fears and our own flaws, our own poisons that we constantly drink, that we don't even are sometimes aware of, and getting rid of that to fully become what we were destined to be within this incarnation.
Most definitely, most definitely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, here's the interesting thing where you talk, and it is interesting when you talk about poison becoming medicine, because that is essentially an alchemy in itself. You have alchemy of changing lead, the base human self, into gold, which could be the super soul or higher potential or Lucifer's light or the Promethean fire, whatever you categorize that as. And then you have the other side of it, which is the dark side of it, which is literally transmuting poisons into nectars, and the black and bloody waters itself. This isn't just something that sounds edgy, sounds cool. It's black, it's blood. No, there's a reason behind why it is the way it is. It essentially is a pool that is a huge crack in this astral carbon, and filling this up, and it's almost bottomless. It is literally like a bottomless falling with this fluid and liquid, which is alive and sentient. And the sisters surround it, and above them are the various cycles of the moon, like various different moons, various different cycles and spans of it, as well as the pink moon, the dark moon, the blood moon, and they're standing over this. And this is probably the most strangest incarnation I've seen them in, that they all appear as robed, hooded females. One will be wearing a black robe, the other one will be wearing a purple one, the other one will wearing a green, so on and so forth. And they're chanting, they're saying something in unison as one voice. They're coming together and they gather around this collective pools because it is the collective essence of them all that's getting funneled into what the grander version is of the dark goddess. You know, as I said, the dark goddess is manifested in all different forms. So is the horn god. And the interesting thing about it is, so we have literally each sister infusing and imbuing their aspects into these waters. So you have Nama, she's literally the initiatrix. She's going to initiate you into the Cliffothic mysteries. She's going to initiate you into magic, into the secrets of your own becoming, and various other things, you know, and as well as Lilith, for example, you know, like her aspects of sexual liberation, you know, her secrets of tantric or sexual rites, that's also imbued into it. I mean, there's just this constant overwhelming flow, which is pretty limitless. It is pretty limitless. And it's not only going to transform you, this is an alchemy. This is an alchemy of taking those darker parts of yourself and destroying that which does not serve you. But no matter what anyone says, and this is quite frankly the truth, you're always going to have some form of toxicity within you. Unless you're a monk in a monastery who fasts every single day, who thinks completely pure thoughts, always turns his cheek and lives the strict code of passive, was it the passive path? Then you're always going to have some form of darkness that is going to linger on your soul. But that's not a bad thing. What we're here doing is we understand we live in a very unjust world. We live in a world which, quite frankly, is full of poisons. So what do? We adapt to them. We become resilient to them. And in the end, not just immune, but we are actually feasting on these things which would, quite frankly, destroy others. And this is a mythological theme which is referred to in various mythologies. You know, you have the fact of Surt. Yeah, nobody can enter Muspelheim and survive. You know, nobody, unless you have the blessings of Surt. And literally, those who have worked with Surt, they will literally say that by getting those blessings, when you go in there, it seems like the flames which would otherwise completely annihilate and destroy, instead invigorate you and transform you. And this is a reoccurring thing. It's like necromancy, which we've discussed many times on my live streams, you know. Death essence would normally corrode and eat at you, but the necromancer is finding alchemical means to feed on that and to liberate himself through that, like the Agori. So it is a very prevalent thing that we're now noticing. I mean, now noticing how vital these things are. And quite frankly, the benefits, as I've said, are pretty limitless. Why don't we go over the benefits then? What would you say as you personally? What do you see the benefits as? And then I'll kind of give my little take on that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and what you said was perfectly put in a way that, you know, this is a constant thing that's happening. And I see us both almost becoming the mouthpieces of the gods and the demons and the stuff that we're working with on the left-hand path. Because every rite that we offer has something new to bring to the table, which sort of is a lock mechanism with every ritual that we've done so far to, you know, one day maybe unlock the truest potential that whatever we can pull from that. By working with this ritual specifically, and with Lilith and the Three Sisters, I have to go back in time when I started working with Asjahi on the Path of Smoke, and when I got introduced to the Dark Goddess and her aspect through Asjahi. And I remember thrusting myself on the altar of her sacred altar and being slaughtered right there in the middle of the Black Forest in the night when I've made a pact with her. There were other many path workings that led to this, but I remember that I willingly wanted to go through hell so that I could come out of it stronger, better, and just ready for new tasks that would come to me one day. Because I knew that I had to be empowered by my own poisons once again, by my own flaws, and just not constantly, poisoning myself and taking in negative energies, not transmuting it, but this time using it as an alchemy to really thrust myself into this and to realize what and where I had to better myself and what were my flaws, and then using magic to kind of push that and 10x the whole goal behind making myself better and therefore my life. And Astra, he empowered me in many ways. And I remember even before the pact that I made with her, that I was in the graveyard as the preparatory immersion rite before that. So I spent the whole night there. I think it was like maybe 9 hours, and I was sitting under a dark, under an old oak tree, and I was just meditating on the essence of death and Lilith and Asjahi and of that darkness. And after I don't know how many hours, I'm literally being within the transcendental state of mind and just being everywhere at the same time, but really being focused to the death current. Asjahi came to me and she gave me the kiss of Asjahi. And that was the initiation for me to the vampiric path. And all the way until here, I have been empowered and blessed by her and Lilith in so many ways, considering sexual confidence, for example, realizing, my own greatness and using that to transmute myself and to present myself in a different way. Where if I want to get something, I'll make sure that I go out there physically, maybe also magically to push that, but to, take it if it really is mine and to work for it. And that was a key factor for me to, come out of my own comfort zone and just to embrace, maybe lashbacks from other people and just giving a fuck about what other people would think and say about me, and just, embracing my inner flaws that I thought were flaws before, but now seeing, hey, actually things that people were saying about me that, that might sound negative, I turned them around for me. It's like, yes, I am that. I'm going to use it for my own benefit. And that's what I did. And I became way more confident. And also another thing that she empowered me was the vampiric essence of, taking the life force and the life essence as the predator and not becoming the prey anymore, and turning yourself from the lower half of the pyramid and just resting myself on the upper pyramid top, where I'll now be on the top of the food chain rather than to be a sheep. Which is also, another principle of the left-hand path, being your own god, your own master of your reality. That's also something I've learned is if I have to hunt for something, I don't really care how much it will take, but I will go out there with my spear, symbolically, whatever I need, and I'll go hunt for that. And that was one of the other things that I was massively empowered by Lilith. So what were your experiences, especially with that, right, and working with Lilith and the Three Sisters?
Well, I can tell you that, quite frankly, death is a very important aspect of our being, the death and rebirth cycle. I mean, from my immersion into the lake of fire with the gatekeepers, and being rebuilt from the very essence of that current, as well as being immersed into the limitless and underlining current of death, and as well as, like you said, the rite of Ajahi, the droning legions of the Druj Nasu feasting upon you upon the altar of the blood moon, ready to transmute you then and there. And then I can't tell you the amount of deaths and rebirths I've had in my time, but when it came to the one of Lilith specifically, this is a very strange one, because they're piecing you back together from their very essence. It's not just a death and a rebirth and a sort of, hey, go, you can go now. It's not like that. And quite frankly, it's much different. I've only ever offered this ritual for one of a client, and that was a case of when a client came to me and they were severely down, severely depressed. They went through trauma. They were an abuse survivor, verbal abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, you name it. This person, they would never show their face in the camera when we would do consultations. When they did, they would hide their face with a hood and hair. And she was really down about herself. And we done this ritual. And then, of course, we done some work afterwards. And the transformative effects I seen in this woman were tremendous, tremendous. She was so happy. She was taking everything that she thought she was and used it and used that rage and allowed it. She pushed that towards her abusers, and she won over her abusers. And her abusers were incarcerated. One of them actually, coincidentally, shall we say, tried to take his own life in prison. And as well as about a month later, she gets her onto the consultation. She's showing her face. She's got makeup on. She's smiling. She's like a whole other person. As a matter of fact, I had to check the devil to make sure that I'm speaking to the same girl. And yeah, now she's out there. I believe she's working still with Lilith. And I know she's doing quite a lot of other things too. But you can see that this literally will take you from the very lowest pinnacle of where you are and try to raise you above it all. And it's not the type of ritual bullshit when it says, this never happened, don't think about it, and just move on. Move on with your life. It's fine, move on. Look, let's be real here for a moment. Let's be real. Let's be logical. If I done a ritual on your behalf and you suffered massive abuse and you suffered all these incredible hardships, I can't tell you this never happened. How dare I even suggest this never happened? As a matter of fact, it did happen and it's haunting you. What you need is a way to not just deal with it, but somehow liberate yourself through it. Not act like it's not there. And she liberated herself through it, as did I. I had suffered much abuse from my own father, my own biological father. I had many, many hardships in life that I liberated myself through. I mean, if we touch on bullet point to bullet point here, essentially, of what this ritual offers: liberation, sexual empowerment. These sisters are literally known as the four angels, of prostitution. And you have to understand, prostitution, a very long time ago, was considered as something sacred. I mean, even now, we're slowly starting to see it become more acceptable in our modern society, with sex workers and things like OnlyFans. I mean, it may not be the same, but essentially, it is literally people now not being ashamed of what they do for a living. And yeah, if I can make profit from showing my beauty, showing who I am, I'm going to do it. It's going to give you a massive increase in confidence. This is literally going to destroy all those obstacles, all those blockages, all those chains placed upon you. It is essentially being drowned, dying, being pieced back together, empowered, ignited within that alchemical cauldron of the black and bloody waters, and then liberated to the surface. And also another thing that I will be adding on to this is only an immersion into that current. It's an immersion into each and every one of those sisters. And as a matter of fact, I have now got confirmation from Lilith herself that each one of the clients will be assigned a familiar spirit after this ritual is done. And these are spirits specifically of sexual nature. They're incubus and they're succubi. However, most of these entities, they're not just worked with for carnal fascination. They're not just worked with for sexual pleasure. They're worked with to discover the various ways that you can employ your power, be it sexual or otherwise. These entities have been looked down upon for many, many years. And as you said, there are things like predatorial spirituality will also come into it. Vampirism, for example. Because the thing about vampirism is, and I've said this many times on my channel specifically, that vampirism is often looked at as a parasitic spiritual art. And it's not. It's really not. Look, this is the way the world works. You're either predator or prey. There is no in between. There is no. There is predator and prey. Are you going to be the prey of a predator, or are you going to become the predator? Michael W. Ford, when he wrote on Lilith, excellent author, by the way, and the way he wrote upon vampirism was spot on. It's using these raw, primal, and animalistic and warrior-based essences of humanity, allowing that to fuel us and become a predator. That's not to say that we're out there just vampirizing, causing havoc and mayhem, because quite frankly, who's got time for that? But we can employ these powers. We can employ these powers to cause destruction and mayhem if we so choose, but we can also use it as a tool. We can use it as a weapon. And as a matter of fact, many people say to me, how do I protect myself from vampirism? Well, learn vampirism, and you're
Yeah,
going to
exactly.
protect yourself from it. So yeah, the benefits of this are profound. Clintworthic immersion, this is the initiation of the sisters, sexual empowerment, liberation, glamour magic, even, which I've personally encountered. What I mean by glamour magic is, here's an interesting thing. Before diving into the black and bloody waters, I suffered with terrible acne. I mean, awful, awful acne. And people till this day always say to me, "Hey, what filters, what effects are you using on your pictures?" I'm like, none. And they're like, "No, you must be." It wasn't until I started doing live streams and stuff like that people were like, "Oh no, that's generally you. You generally do look like that." They're like, "Holy shit, man!" And I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't look like this ever. That I had really bad acne. I actually had I suffered with bad anemia for many many years." And all these things combined were physical afflictions on my being, which, quite frankly, in all honesty, made me look like an ugly motherfucker, and I can't put it any other way. That's how it made me look. It was quite bad. I had a severe. My confidence was knocked down. But through working with the sisters and that immersion, it's like you become a seductive spirit yourself. They're seducers. They're the embodiments of seduction also and beguilement. And you cannot be a seducer unless you look the part. And you do essentially take on that shape and take on that form. And this led to my acne clearing up. This led from being extremely, extremely skinny to putting on actual weight for the first time, to having weak, brittle bones and hollow eyes, which would sink into my forehead, and now being severely healthy. And I only continue to improve. So yeah,
Wow. Well, as you just said, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's a whole lot that this ritual entails and brings as the benefits that you will receive from this. And yeah, perfectly put, brother. And one thing that I also want to add to that, which is sort of not a special, I would say, but something that was sort of requested by people, is that this is not just going to be a ritual that we do on your behalf, but we're actually inviting you to participate with us. Because within the ritual that we're going to do, we will essentially go there and do it and perform the entire ritual for you, and we will call forth your souls and your consciousness within that pool to make that transformation for you. But we will give you step-by-step instructions how you can perform this ritual on your behalf, on your side, while we're doing this. And we will give you certain elements and things that you can use with this. Connor is going to come up with a sigil as well. So this is not only a ritual that is going to, well, benefit your life manifold with all the things you just perfectly put into bullet points, but also you can participate within it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, so there are people that do hire ritual for hire and do want these rituals that don't do magic themselves and that want to experience the benefits, or do magic themselves, but at the moment can't do it for whatever means. And this ritual is going to allow us to do that on your behalf. So if you don't want to take part, that's fine. But there are many people that contacted me. They were like, "Yo, I would have loved some way to actually interact with the energies of the ritual too." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, quite. Why don't we add that? Why don't we see if we can work around that?" And so that's what we're doing. There's going to be a seal, which is going to be sent to everyone and who purchases this ritual. And you're going to not only get to interact with this ritual yourself, but also use that seal even afterwards, and how you can apply that to your own magic and to your own ascent too.
Exactly. And even if you don't feel like participating, we will still do the ritual on your behalf. But this is going to be a massive opportunity for you to jump into the ritual circle with us. So if you feel like you're able to do that, we'll make sure that we'll give you all the instructions needed for it. So this was perfectly put, and everything was summed up, sweet and nice. And I think we can wrap this up here. Where I just have to say that once again, thank you, brother, for jumping on, making this podcast with me. For everyone that is watching this on Connor's channel or mine, everything that you need, every kind of information, will always be down in the description. I have created a PDF file that is compiling everything that we just talked about, so you can kind of briefly brush over it again, read through it, and see if it's for you. And yeah.
Yeah, that's elegantly put, and yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for joining me too, man. It was a blast. It's always a blast to jump on, do these podcasts, and specifically do these rituals for people, and cause the change. And hopefully one day these people can then do the same for others, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking to continue this cycle, and eventually, just elevate and liberate everybody else. So I'd like to say infernal blessings to you all, brothers and sisters, and I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to check out a serial crabber at his YouTube channel. And if you're watching this video on his YouTube channel, then be sure to check me out at the Infernal
Check out
Overlord.
Connor Candle at Infernal Overlord. Exactly. So yeah, thanks for jumping on. Infernal blessings to everyone. And I'll see you in the ritual circle.